Hey, everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
Welcome, everybody. Doc and Jock here for a special podcast. The Doc is here, John Macaroon. Adam, the Jock Strozinski, is here in the building, and we have a special guest. He answered our phone call. He said, you know what? I got to check out what Doc and Jock are doing. Tom Mazawey, executive producer, 105.1, anchor. You can hear him on Matt Deary and Drew and Mark at 105.1 FM. Tom, thank you so much for coming in. We're so looking forward to having a chat and getting to know you a little bit better.
My pleasure, guys.
Thank you.
It's good to meet you.
Yeah, we started this podcast because, Adam and I are big fans of radio. We love Detroit sports, and we want to just have a chat about your history in sports, your vast knowledge in the radio business game. You've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to pick your brain.
Hey, I like it here. It looks like my basement. I got all the Detroit Free Press and Detroit News back pages up here. It's all good, man. Love sports.
Now, podcasting has taken off, as you know. In the last several years, they've popped up all over the place. What do you think about them? Do you listen to them? And you guys are doing them over there at 105.1. Yep. They're great. The Knockouts are doing them.
I know.
Rob Pasco, Adam Zellick, they do a great one. I listen. And podcasts are really fun. And what are your thoughts about them? And you think it's an interesting new wrinkle to the radio business?
I mean, you guys are proving it. You guys are doing a great job, and people are knowing you, and you got some great interviews out there. And let's face it, it's another part of media. All right, you got to change or die, right? So you got to keep it going. It's great. You don't really need a radio station to put your opinion out there. And you guys got a lot of followers and a great website. You guys are doing a terrific job.
For those who don't know who you are, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
Where you came from, what you've done, and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know John kind of went through a litany of things, but I know you wear way more hats than that.
That's all right. Now, I came from Jersey, born and raised there, and came to Michigan in 93. My wife is from St. Clair Shores, and that's where we are. And got married in 98, and it turns out that's basically when I've had 2 years in. I started in 96 at WJR as an intern from Specs Howard.
All right. Shout out the Specs.
Shout out the Specs. I worked for Mitch Album when he first started his radio show. It was 3 to 6 on WJR. He was first, I think he worked at Riff before that. But besides that, WJR gave him a shot, and I worked as an intern there. And the more I learned, the more I loved it. And I was like, man, this is what I've always wanted to do. And I went to Specs Howard as a 2-year-old guy. So they called me Uncle Tommy. I was the oldest in the class. So I got through there and got the internship with Mitch. Before you know it, my internship's over. He offered me a part-time producer's gig and showed me the ropes, and took it from there. And Chuck Swirsky was a sports director at JR at the time. He now is the play-by-play guy for the Chicago Bulls. Mm-hmm. So he said, Mash, I love your spirit. How would you like a job in the sports department? And I thought it was like a prank. I thought I was looking around to see if they were filming me on candid camera. I'm like, you kidding? It's like, no, I love your passion. I think you'd be great. You produce sports rap for us. Sports rap was the original sports talk show here in Detroit. Frank Beckman did it. Mm-hmm. And then turned the reins over to Chuck Swirsky after that, alongside Dan Dickerson and Steve Courtney. I'm like, phew, I'm all over it. So they hired me in for $20,000. Okay. I was 34 years old at the time, making $20,000. So I took a big step back because I was in the restaurant and bar business growing up, and I didn't want to do that here in Michigan. So I went, like I said, I went to Specs, and I digress. So I went WJR and just fell in love with the place, going to work at the Fisher Building every day. It was phenomenal, meeting all these people. And going to my first game was a Pistons preseason game against the Nets. I'm an East Coast guy, right? So I wanted the Nets. So Paul Chapman takes me. Paul Chapman was a big veteran reporter on JR. He takes me to my first game at the Palace, and I'm just like wide-eyed because the press gets to sit down on the court. I'm like, I've never been down this far. What, are you kidding me? I start cheering for the Nets. The Nets make a basket. Oh yeah! And he's like, Mass, you don't do that anymore. You can't cheer anymore. Cheering is done. You're a reporter now. So I had to learn. That was the first game I went to. Obviously, I've learned since. So I cheer inside, But that's basically how I got rolling. And the rest is history. There's plenty more into my career, but I don't want to bore you.
No, we'll get to that in a bit. Speaking of cheering, growing up, who were the teams that you followed as a kid out there in Jersey?
Oh, all my New York teams. And, they always tell you got to like the Giants or the Jets or the Mets or the Yankees. I love them all. There was only one team I really didn't like was the Rangers because all my friends were Ranger fans. I grew up an Islander fan because I started loving hockey when the Islanders were born, or when they came to Nassau Coliseum in the early 70s. And then, of course, they became a dynasty. So I had everything on my friends. It was phenomenal. And then when the Devils came in 82 to Jersey, Jersey's first team, besides the Giants, who are still called New York, but even though they played in New Jersey since 75. So when the Devils came, my allegiance went to them, although I'm still an Islander guy, and I love seeing them come back now. But my favorite sport, it's baseball and football, kind of hand in hand. So when the Yankees obviously giving me such a great thrill, the Mets, 69, I was too young to remember it, but 86 was magic. And the New York Giants were dregs when I was a kid. They were horrible. I rooted for the Dolphins. Undefeated Miami Dolphins. They were coming up. I remember watching one of their first games that I really fell in love with the Dolphins was the sudden death game against the Chiefs back in 71. And they won, got into the Super Bowl. Cowboys beat them bad. But then the following years when they had the unbeaten season. So I would root for the Dolphins. And then the Giants, of course, were always my team. The Jets always stunk as well. Loved them as well. And then the Giants came out of nowhere, and Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms and Bill Parcells. And, that's really my true love, the Giants.
Was Lawrence Taylor your favorite player?
So much so that I actually worked as a busboy at his restaurant, LT's. And he would just show up at night, party like a son of a... The place went bankrupt. But you know what? I had a great time saying, I work at LT's, man. That was fun. And, it later turned into a different restaurant. I think it turned into Satin Dolls, which is Bada Bing on Sopranos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that. Tom
Big
Mazawey
Sopranos
shaking
fan.
hands, kissing
Big
babies.
Sopranos fan.
I love it. So I guess Sopranos. Who's your favorite guy in Sopranos?
Oh God, Tony's my guy.
Tony's your dude.
And rest in peace, James Gandolfini.
Yeah,
that's my show, man. And I still watch it on HBO. Repeats HBO Go. But yeah, Sopranos to me was, it's just Jersey.
That's my dad's favorite show, by the way.
It is.
He loves it. He has all of the discs, watches them all the time.
It's phenomenal. Breaking Bad since then has been awesome. I'm a big TV guy.
Okay.
I love movies. I love music. I'm just a regular, average Joe.
Just a regular guy.
That's it.
You were a big sports fan, and you started to develop a passion. When did you start thinking that maybe you wanted to build a career in sports? What was that turning point, and what was that motivation for you to have a career in the sports business?
It really wasn't a turning point. Since I was a kid, This is the truth. I'd sit on my porch in Union City, New Jersey, and I'd have a radio with me. And I would listen to the radio all damn day if I wasn't playing ball or whatever. And I'd listen to WABC in New York, 77. And Howard Cosell would come on at night, and that was my guy. I wanted to be Howard Cosell. He was my, I would say he was the guy I looked up to the most. And, I never thought I could really do it. All my family kept saying, Tommy, sports is where you got to go. Sports is where you got to go. And when I went to college at St. Peter's, I didn't really know what the hell I wanted to do. I always wanted to do radio, but it never came in my head that I was going to do it. So I just kept taking business courses or whatever like that. I was not doing great and just going through the motions, basically. And I really didn't think of radio until I came here to Michigan. And like I said, I came in 93, and I decided I didn't want to work in the restaurant business here. Since I did it in New York, I didn't want to come to Detroit. And it's not New York City restaurants. It's different. I wanted to do something different. I'm like, it's the Motor City. Maybe I'll sell cars. So I went to all these car dealerships up and down Gratiot, and finally got one that would hire me. It was Jim Reel's, Roseville, Chrysler, Plymouth, like on 10.5 in Gratiot. And I met Mr. Reel, and first they told me they didn't have any room for me, and I kept going back. I went back 3 straight days, and I kind of got like friendly with the receptionist. Tammy was her name. I'll never forget. And she's made Mr. Reel interview me. She's like, you interview this guy. And he hired me. And I did real well. Not great. Enough to make a living. And it was a good business, but it wasn't my passion. So I was out in the parking lot one day, cleaning cars off, snow off the cars, because you had to keep the inventory clean. And I heard a commercial for Specs Howard. And I'm like, wow, I've never heard of it before. So I went home that night and I told my fiance at the time, what do you think? Take a ride to Southfield with me. I want to go to this. To the school and just check it out. She's like, okay, I'll follow you and see what you got. So we went, and before you know it, my fiance gets accepted for her master's, but up in the UP. So here I am. I moved to Michigan for her, and she gets accepted to Northern Michigan to do her master's in speech. So she's going to leave me and go up to the Marquette. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what. Give me 2 years. You do your thing for 2 years. I'm going to do my thing here and see if I can get into radio. And she said, she gave me her blessing. So I joined Specs Howard. I went to the morning shift. In the afternoons, I went to WJR for Mitch. And at night, I waited tables in Grosse Pointe. That's how I put myself through school. And you got the rest. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm here.
And now you spoke on air. I'm a regular listener, 105.1 FM. You spoke of some decisions that you made, and you were you had a similar story to DeAndre Jordan in that you had a situation where you were looking at a change in jobs, but it didn't really work out, and you had a change in.
I'll tell you exactly.
Yeah, tell us the story.
It was a couple of years into WJR, and I got a call from somebody first at ESPN Radio in Bristol, and they wanted to fly me in and interview me.
You were a hot commodity back then.
You believe it? I don't know. Someone just, my work ethic, I guess, got around, and they said, we want to have you come in. So they flew me in to Bristol. I was like on cloud 9, but I didn't tell the bosses at JR at the time. We were one family. It was run by Disney. Mm-hmm. Disney owned ESPN. Disney owned JR at the time. So I'm like, okay, it's the same family. I can get around it. So I go there, and I interview, and they wanted to hire me to be the first producer of Dan Patrick's show.
Wow.
The Dan Patrick radio show. I was like, wow. I'm on a cloud. And my wife and I just got married. We just got married. It was 1998. And they offered me not a lot of money, more than I was making, but not enough to move back east. So I told them politely, I can't move for this. I'm sorry. I felt good. At least I got the interview, got to go see ESPN. They showed me everywhere. It was really a thrill. So then a couple of weeks later, my wife and I find a house. We put a bid on a house. We get the house. It was a for sale by owner, so I gave the down payment, and I'm not kidding. A day later, ESPN called me back and offered me like $20,000 more.
Wow!
And that would have made it. That would have put me okay where I needed to be. And I had to tell them, too late. I already got this house. I'm at JR. So be it. And what happens is Mike O'Hara, who's a friend of mine, he used to write for the news, and every Sunday he'd write this column with Vartan Kapelian called BTS, Behind the Scenes. And he'd put little snippets from media stuff in there. And one of the last things was, hey, WJR producer Tom Mazawey was flown into ESPN Radio in Bristol, blah, blah, blah. We're glad Maz is still with us. The next day I go in on a Monday, my bosses had me in the office, and they're like, what the heck is this? If we're reading this, you're not telling us what's going on? Holy cow. I explained to them, come on, I thought it was the same family. I'm still here, aren't I? And they let bygones be bygones. So that was my first brush with leaving JR.
Was it rocky after that?
Not really.
Did it make it a little bit weird at all?
No, not at all. Not at all. They've always treated me great there.
That's awesome.
But what Doc is asking me, it was about when 1270 flipped over to sports. Mm-hmm. And I think they were called Team 1270 when they first started. And I got a call from a friend of mine, Jeff Lesson. And Jeff was going to be the program director there. And they brought me in. I talked to all the higher-ups, and they wanted to bring me in as executive producer of the Locker Room show and part management as well. So I was going to work with Eli, Kirk, help me out here. Kirk, Gary Danielson, the three of them. So I'm like, great. I sign on the dotted line. I'm going to do it. I give my notice at JR. They're like, oh, Maz, we're going to miss you, blah, blah, blah. But usually when you go to another radio station, they'll have you clear out your desk right then and there. I was the last one out that night because I had Michigan basketball to do. They literally, they said, lock up the place when you leave. We're going to miss you. So I left my phone there. I left my key card there. And the next day I went right into XYT. Met Eli. I knew him already. Mm-hmm. And something just didn't feel right that day to me. So about maybe 4 hours in, it was like noon. And I'm like, this isn't right. I get on the phone with my wife. I'm like, honey, this doesn't feel right to me. She's like, well, you already quit. What are you going to do? I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to call JR and see what they say. I'm going to call Steve Stewart, who was the program director. And she says, go ahead. I call him and I talk to him. Hey, Steve. He says, Tommy? And I'm like, I want to come back. He starts laughing. He's like, what are you talking about? Give it some time. You're going to love it. I'm like, I don't want to love it. I want to leave. I want to come tomorrow. Do I have my job back? And he's like, yeah, of course you have your job back. And then I said, gee, I want my job back plus blah, blah, blah. He's like, okay, fine. Come back. And they gave me a raise. I went back the next day. They had like a party for me. I had a cake. They had balloons.
You weren't even out of the office 48 hours.
I wasn't out of the office 24 hours. So, and that's it. I mean, so I went back to JR. I just didn't feel right to me.
It just didn't feel right in your gut. You just had you had a bad feeling it wasn't going to turn out.
I had a bad feeling. And you know what? Those people at 1270 were nice people. They called me that night because I called them all. And I didn't DeAndre Jordan them. I answered their phone. And I talked to Rich Homburg, who was the boss. I talked to George Ann Herbert, who was the PD, who was the vice president. I talked to Eli. Danielson called me. Gibby called me. Come on, Mads, blah, blah, blah. They were all great guys. I just told them it just wasn't for me. And that was it. Went back to JR. And then like 2 years later, I wound up at 1270 anyway with Lenny and John Lund and Mark Spindler and Terry Foster and all those guys. I actually made the jump that time to 1270.
We got Tom Mazawey in studio talking with Doc and Jock one-on-one. Tell everybody, what does the job of a radio producer entail?
Oh, God, it does a lot. And a lot of people, you'll hear hosts say, oh, my producer is Joe Blow, who's running the board. And I'm like, that's not the producer. That's your board op. That's your engineer. Your producer is the guy that you lean on for ideas, a guy that comes up with your guest ideas, a guy that tells you if a segment is good or if a segment sucks. That's your producer. A producer is a guy that maybe you're not a host. Maybe you don't want to be a host. I never really wanted to be a host. I wanted to be maybe to chip in like I do. But I love producing a radio show. I love making a great radio. And people call in and people enjoy themselves. And people write about it now on Twitter and texting. But back then, you didn't get as much feedback. But you just knew that people were listening. I mean, you knew when you did good radio. A lot of times it just didn't matter in the ratings or whatever because it's hard to make ratings in radio. If you don't have people that are listening to you that have a PPM meter, let's face it, you're a blip on the radar.
Idea. Exactly.
But you got to keep doing good radio, and you got to hope that the people that listen to you eventually will get it, will get one of these things and, get the radio station making some money. And a producer helps a host be a host. He talks them through things. A lot of times a host is having a bad day. You got to talk them up and pump them up. And that's it. You keep them on the up and up, and you try to make the best radio you can and try to come up with ideas. Constantly thinking. Like today, I'm already booking, during my show, I'm booking tomorrow and Friday's show and thinking who I have to book next week because I have Matt's on vacation. Who am I going to bring in? Who works good together? Maybe I'll give this guy another crack. And, guys like Adam, he deserves to be on a radio station. I mean, he's working his tail off behind the scenes right now. And eventually someone's going to notice your hard work and put you to work.
Just give me a call.
And just give you a call, man. You're available, right?
That's right.
All right. Doc, you too, but I think you got some other work to do.
That's right. And I really respect the job of a radio producer because you don't know. We all hear the host, but sometimes the behind the scenes doesn't get enough credit, and that's why.
Absolutely.
But what you know because I've been in charge of getting guests and Adam as well. It's a tough thing to deal with people to try to get them on a show and things like that.
The best compliment comes from the host to your producer. Mm-hmm. If your host likes you, you guys work as a team. You know it. It's a good song when the words are good. And the beat is good. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and WFAN in New York was one of the first all-sports stations.
It was.
Did you think that sports radio was going to become what it is now? Almost 24 hours, several different broadcast networks, fans calling in. You think it was going to be like this?
Not like this. This is, it's crazy. I mean, and look at you guys. You got your own show. I mean, how many podcasts are out there? Can you count them even?
No.
You can't.
Hundreds of them.
They're all different ways of getting the word out. For sports. I mean, sports is supposed to be fun. Yeah, there's going to be guys that disagree with you. But when it comes down to it, it's just sports we're talking about, man. And if we talk about a story, it's in the news. Everyone has an opinion. It's like a doorknob. We all got opinions. We all got doorknobs.
All right. So 2 years later, speaking of great radio, you were part of something that was infamous in Detroit. 2 years later, you end up going to 1270.
Yep.
You were part of what has been called The Rant. You were producing the Millennium Foster show. Millennium Foster show.
Yeah.
And Michigan State had just lost to Notre Dame in what looked like a hurricane after they had the lead going into the fourth.
Poor Mike was there with his dad.
That's right. And it was a monsoon. Mike comes in on Monday's show and just loses it.
Yes, he does.
So
he didn't want to lose it, but it just morphed into that.
It was one of those things where
got in Sports Illustrated.
It did. Yeah. It was one of those things that you were there trying to control the entire scene. There were breaks that were being missed. And it at one point, it just seemed like it spun out of control, but you did a phenomenal job kind of reining it all in and keeping it together. How difficult was that?
You know what? I haven't listened to it in so long. I remember it was this great.
I should go dig the CD out of my car.
It was great radio.
It was great radio.
It was just so fun to hear. You know what? I just sat down in the chair and I just let him go, let him lose his voice. And
you tried offering him tea at one point.
I did. I did. You know what? There was no way bringing him back at that point. There was this, the guy knows what he's doing. He did a great job then, and he's still a force to be reckoned with.
What was being part of that like for you?
You know what? It was just, to me, it was almost like another day because Mike was always like that. He just didn't lose his voice a lot on the air. But that's true passion, man. That's good stuff. You don't get that. You can't script that.
No, that's real.
Yeah.
That's authentic. How do you go about, so like during the rant, Mike says to you, he's like, Tom, this is what we talked about. This is what I'm doing. Like he was adamant about going on about how he felt about that game and about everything that occurred that day. How does the pre-production for something like that go?
There was no pre-production.
It was
for
he was just like he's just like, look, we're talking MSU.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you how it is.
We meet in the morning. We meet in the morning. We all sat like at a different desk. You know, we're tired, and he just comes in and he's of course down, but he's not gonna waste it off mic.
Right.
Well, we just keep it simple. It's so easy when it comes to something like that. And Terry and I just looked at each other and we
guys kind of knew.
We just kind of knew. Just, you know what? Leave him alone, Maz. I'm like, okay, I'm leaving him alone. Mike, do what you got to do.
I'll get you a copy of that. I got it.
That would be great. I'd like to hear it again.
Yeah.
That would be great.
It was great radio. And if anybody hasn't heard it, they usually do an anniversary when it happens.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to give you a side story about Mike. When I was at JR and worked with Dan Dickerson, his wife, Lori Ann Dickerson, was an instructor at MSU. Mike was one of her students.
Okay.
So this was when, after JR lost the Tigers and the Red Wings, our president at the time decided sports isn't good on radio. We're going to let it go. Yeah. Nonetheless.
Boy, they don't know what they were talking about.
No. You think
Not in this area.
You think they dropped the ball a little?
A little bit.
Yeah. Nonetheless, we knew it was going to go. So the sports department was basically shrinking down. We're going to lose Dan to the Tigers. Dan became the Tigers play-by-play guy. Steve Courtney and I were basically the sports department. And Steve did Mitch's afternoon drive, and I produced our show at night, and they finally decided that Sports Rep was going to go away. So I really had nothing much to do. That's why I jumped to 1270 the second time. But before that, I got a call from Lori saying, hey, look, I got a guy here, one of my students wants an internship. She used to send me interns. I used to have so many interns, but we had things to do. At that time, I said, Lori, I got no time. I don't have any room for her. And she's like, you got to take this kid. He's, you got to take him off my hands, basically. Basically is what she's saying. She was tired of hearing him badger her for an internship. So it turned out it was Mike. So I think, and I can't remember if I talked to him or we exchanged emails, I basically told him that I couldn't do anything for him. To this day, he'll tell me that I'm the reason I drove him to be the guy he is in sports radio. And you can ask him, and I'll guarantee he'll tell you, yeah, it was Maz. I was pissed at Maz. I was his driving force. Every time he'd get down, he would think of me and get more mad. And that's where his sports inferno. And obviously it just became, last names over at 97. So that used to be the sports inferno for a reason. He's an inferno.
Because he was always pissed.
But isn't that funny? I had a chance for him to be my intern. And in fact, here it is. And it wasn't, Mike, it wasn't my deal, man. I would have given you an internship if I had room.
Now, shoot to August 2013, the new 105.1 turns to All Sports. Now, you are now the executive producer of the shows there on 105.1 FM. What's it like to be part of the beginnings of a new all sports station in Detroit?
I love it. And like I said, I was one of the first ones to be hired when Team 1270 launched, but I didn't last long, as I told you. This one, I was going to make sure I wasn't going to leave. I was at JR at the time, again, part-time, and doing other stuff, because it was real hard to get a full-time gig in radio at that time. And being in my 50s makes it even harder.
Don't worry, it hasn't changed.
I'm just telling you. It's a fact of life, all right? It is what it is. So I get this job, and Jason Dixon came from the Tampa area, and we all got a good chance to, I'm sure everyone in the town gave him resumes and calls, and I was one of the lucky ones that got a call in. So I had an interview with him, and he hired me to produce the 12 to 3 show, basically. And that was going to be the lead-in to Drew and Mark. They built the station around Drew Lane. So he's been with Greater Media for such a long time and made them a lot of money.
Forever.
Yep.
Forever, really.
Yep. What
truly.
A pro, too. Nonetheless, I was going to be hired at 12 to 3 and didn't know the host yet. I never met Rico Beard at the time. And I knew Ryan Armani. And they were going to put those two guys together and put them out there until the Diesel came to town, because Matt had like a contract thing going. So we were going to watched the 12-3 for him with Ryan and Rico until Matt came. So for the first month, me, Ryan, and Rico worked together, and I thought, no, we had such a fun time. It was a great time, and I hated that they were going to get bumped to the weekends. But I love Matt. Don't get me wrong. But I felt, you feel a kinship, man, when you first started the show, and we had a good thing going. So when Matt came, just take it off the sheet, man. I've been working with Matt for 20 years, opposite stations. He was with DFN, I was with JR, and back and forth we went. And actually, when I left 97.1 and 1270, he took my show. He took my shift. He did my afternoon drive sports, and Rob Pasco took they split it. I used to do WWJ, and I used to do the ticket updates. After I was producing, I would just do those shows. Turns out they split it, and they gave it to two guys. Rob Pascal, who I work with now, Matt Derry, who I work with now, took my job, basically, and I became a part-time radio guy. So it leads me back to now we're all together in the same place. And there's a lot of people out there that have put their time in and, can use a gig. I wish everyone can have a gig. But right now, the station's in its infancy still. It's growing up. It's like a little kid now. It's going to be 2 years old next month.
Do you feel like your thumbprint's all over it? You're kind of molding it and helping shape it in the image that you see fit and that you see that this should go and move forward so it can be something very successful?
Yep. We have a new program director, Dave Shore. Jason left. He went to Washington, D.C. He works for Sirius Sports now. So Dave come to us from L.A., ESPN L.A. Got a lot of experience, knowledge, and he's got a great drive. And you know what? He's teaching me the ropes, more management style, different management style. Everyone puts their heads together there, and we try to come up with, we want to have new talent to come into the station. And eventually, the station makes money, there's going to be more shows. And who knows down the line? Right now we have the Pistons. It's great. Maybe we'll have another team down the line in the future. Who knows where it's going to hold? Right now we got the Pistons. We're the flagship. I love that. I love having the teams on the air. I did that when I had JR. I worked for the Red Wings, the Tigers, and Michigan football. Got into Michigan football for 10 years, working with Beckman and Brandstatter and Courtney. It's great. And the station's coming together really nicely. Yeah, we all there want to have more shows. We all want to be local 24/7. We're working with ESPN. They've been great, and they've been real flexible. They let us. We had Colin Coward, who just left, who was leaving ESPN. Not yet officially yet. He did put it official, but he's not off the air yet. So they let us remove him and put in a local show. Ryan and Rico are back weekdays now. So they're 10 to noon. Then Matt and I are 12 to 3. And then Drew and Mark take us to 7 o'clock. Then we're doing a lot of Piston shows. NFL shows are coming up.
You got fantasy shows coming up.
Fantasy shows. Dennis Farrell, who I know you guys have talked to. Great guy. Jake Chapman is our Pistons guy. That's a guy you want to talk to. Up and coming from Orlando. Knows his hoop inside and out. But he's learning other stuff. Lions camp, we're going to be all over it. We're going to outwork everybody. That's our goal. Just keep working. Try to get the fan base to come over. 97.1's had a huge lead on us. They have all the teams except the Pistons now. It's an uphill battle, but you just keep going. You want to make good radio? People are going to come and listen if you got good radio.
Is the end game, like you said, to be 24/7, to have
of course that's
hosts that are local just doing things all day every day?
And I can't speak for Dave, but I know deep down in his heart, like all of us, we want people to work. We want to see bodies there constantly. The constant flow, the constant non-ending show, which we do. We do a lot of crosstalk with our shows. It kind of makes it all from 10 to 7, one big fraternity.
Here's a question for you. This is just totally separate.
Yeah.
Is Greater Media like the nicest radio station you've ever worked at? Because I know it's the nicest radio station I've ever been at. I've interned for Trudy and Jim on CSX, and I walked in there and I was like, "Oh my God, this place is immaculate."
It's like Mayberry RFD, like Andy Griffith style, and that's way back in the day, guys. It's a great place to work, beautiful. Honestly. And the people there, the upper management, they treat you like gold. And again, look, it's the radio business. People lose their jobs in radio. People just lost their job at CBS again.
CBS is doing it.
I was cut from there, years ago. It's the worst day. When I got let go the first time, I thought I was on candid camera. I thought they were kidding me. I just left the show with Mike and Terry. We did a great show. Maz, can we see you a minute? I'm like, you know what? I got to run. My wife's, we're doing our sonogram today. We're having our third child. We're going to see if it's a boy or a girl today. Oh, this will only take a minute.
Oh.
They walked me into the room, and of course the table's filled with HR and union reps and all of that. And I swear to you guys, I didn't believe that was happening. And you know what? We got a cut. We got cuts. Just like CBS cut, it was the exact same thing. Here's your 4 months, 5 months, whatever the heck they paid me.
So they don't do it like in the NFL where they got one guy who's the cut man.
No.
Just goes in.
The cut man.
I need your playbook.
No.
I need your playbook.
No
You gotta
hard
go.
knocks. It's a surprise hard knocks
Right.
in radio. And I don't wish it on my worst enemy. It's the worst feeling.
It's got to be like a gut punch.
It is. It's worse than that. But you know what? The best feeling is that this station was born, and it was like a blessing for me. I can't tell you, because there I was working part-time on the weekends for JR, just 30 hours a week, and working on the side because I got 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
You got to feed your kids, so you do anything you can. I'm driving people to the airport. I'm picking people up. I'm shopping for them, whatever the heck it takes, man. You got people making fun of me for doing stuff like that, which is, the Twitter world.
Hey, whatever you got to do.
Whatever you got to do.
Right.
And let's talk about some perks of the job. The last 2 Super Bowls on Radio Row.
Yeah.
Talk about the experience, the vibe at the Super Bowl on Radio Row, where all the networks show
love
up,
it.
all the big hosts, all the great guests. I know you got a chance to interview Linda Cohn.
Oh, yeah.
You have a
Coney.
good
You
time.
love Linda Cohn.
I do.
Talk about Radio Row and the experience.
There's nothing.
Super Bowl week.
There's nothing like Super Bowl week. And Final Four is right up there, but not even close. And I've been so happy and lucky to be I covered every event I've ever wanted to cover. The only thing I'm really missing is Indy 500 and Daytona. And I'm not a huge car fan, but those are good events. I'd like to see them eventually. I've seen all the Triple Crown races. Super Bowl is the primo. This year it's going to be out in San Francisco. I can't wait to see that stadium. I hope everything goes well and the station's doing great and we all get to go out there again, because it's like every guy's fantasy, minus the women. Well, the women are there, but every guy's sports fantasy. I'll leave it at that. And, everyone's there. It's so much fun. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. If you guys were out there,
you just walk next to somebody.
Joe
Hey, sit
Namath.
down.
Hey, come on over. Joe Montana. Come on
Just
over.
wave them all over
Ronnie
and just
Lott.
have them sit down.
They all have their publicists. You got to sign on and everything. But the more you're there and the more you stay in touch, I'm always pre-planning my trips, and I know who's bringing who ahead of time. And then once you're there, and then those guys see who you're talking to, like Barry Sanders talked to us 2 years in a row, then they all start coming to you. Oh, we want you to interview this guy. We want you to interview this guy. Mike and Mike are fun to talk to. Kenny Mayne was amazing, hilarious. Linda Cohn, obviously, love her. I saw her in the New York one because that's where she's from and that's where she's hanging. She didn't come to this last one, but it's great. And look
She's
what
a big
ESPN's
Rangers
doing.
fan. You realize that, right?
I know that. She knows.
You guys go back and
Oh
forth?
yeah, she knows I'm a Devil and she's a Ranger.
Okay.
She knows that. And then I get her on. But you know what? I'm a Detroit sports fan. I truly, true blue I am. If the Yankees are playing the Tigers, I'm rooting for the Tigers. I truly am. I don't know. It's been 22 years since I've been here, but these are my teams. I cover them, and I want them to win.
Was that a hard shift for you? I mean,
oh yeah.
I know for me when I was
Very
going,
hard.
when I was the shirt you're wearing. I was a Golden
Oh,
Grizzly.
you?
I graduated from there. Pat Caputo was my sports writing teacher, and he drilled into our head. He's like, you can't be a fan of these teams.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, I had to shut off my fandom, which was gut wrenching. It was hard for me because I was one of those crazy people who would sit there scream at their TV.
Yep.
When the Wings lost in 2009, I was on the corner of Monroe Street crying into my beer.
Yep.
I was sitting there and I was just bawling.
It is
so I
heartbreaking.
was one of those fans. And then when I went to school, Caputo was like, you got to shut it off. I was able to shut it off and trying to turn it back on to do our podcast.
It changes.
I found it was a little difficult at first.
It's a change.
But
It's no question.
Yeah. So was that hard for you to make that switch from hometown teams, the teams that you grew up watching, to now a little bit of a shift because now this is the market you're in?
It's not hard because I root for all of them. I know it's a slappy thing, but I do. I root for them all, and no matter where I am in the country, if I'm traveling or whatever, I can just pick up my phone or pick up the local newspaper and look at the sports department, look at the sports section. I wish newspapers were still really popular. I know they're not, but being a New Yorker, I love having that newspaper in my hand. Love that New York Post, New York News. I wasn't a big Times guy, I'll admit. That's a smart newspaper. Why would I read a smart newspaper when I can read the News and the Post? And here I give the Free Press and the News and the Oakland Press all the love I can. And there's a lot of friends of mine that have lost their jobs in newspapers. I like to see them stay alive. Tom Gage, man, he's going to Cooperstown this weekend without anyone. He doesn't work for anyone right now. That's a sin.
That was a bad move.
He should be working for the Detroit News this year. I said it before, and I'll say it a million times. They should have given him the farewell he deserves. I just talked to him. He's going to be on our show coming up, so we'll see how it rolls.
Excellent.
And we'll replay. It'll be podcasted.
Excellent.
Nothing against your podcast.
No.
We got it on 105.1.
No, hey.
Detroit Sports, 1051.com.
Get it out there. Put it out there.
at Tom Mazawey on Twitter. Always a good follow. Definitely check him out on Twitter.
Man.
Tom Mazawey, kind enough to sit with Doc and Jock. You ready to break down some of these great Detroit sports topics?
Oh, God, yeah.
All right, let's start with something.
Always on.
Let's start with something positive. The Detroit Lions. The Lions are kind of in a situation where transition a little bit when Ndamukong Suh left. People are talking now, how is the defense going to rebound with Haloti Ngata? How is the transition going to take place? The Lions, I think, are in a good spot to have a good season, but a lot of things have to happen right. But the Lions right now are going to be a good watch. It's just going to be one of those things where we have to pay attention to how does Stafford play, how does the defense respond, and the Lions are poised to have a good season if the breaks fall where they need to.
The only NFL teams that not win back-to-back 10 games in a season. This is their year. They will get double-digit year again. That's my prediction.
You believe
10
that?
wins?
I truly
you really believe that?
10 or 11. I do believe it. I picked them for 11-5 last year.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're right.
Now, listen, for the last game of the year, I even said they're going to win in Green Bay and win 12 games. And they didn't. Obviously, they crapped the bet.
But also, too, you have said, I can't watch this anymore.
I know.
I've heard on air, on your post-game show, Lions post-game on 105.1 with Herman Moore, you get upset like Doc and Jock do, and you're like, I can't watch this anymore. They're so close, yet they make the big mistake at the worst possible time. And it's just one of those things where if they could just correct those simple mistakes, they could take the next step.
Sounds easy, right?
Yeah.
Just like the Tigers closing games,
You
right?
can't be Lions free.
I'll never be Lions free.
You can't.
And
It's too hard. It's too hard.
It's the Super Bowl L, right? I've been making a laugh. It's the Super Bowl L. Super Bowl 50 is L, Roman numerals.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only, by the way, non-Roman numeral Super Bowl. They're using the 50 here. The NFL is using Super Bowl 50. Wow. They're not using the L. They'll use it in certain things. I say Super Bowl L for the Lions. And people laughing at me.
I hope you're right, Tom.
Well, what the hell, man? Why not us? Why not us?
Because it's, what is it, rebuilding since 57?
That's it.
Is that what it was?
We all have those hats. 1957 in the Lions colors. You know what, man?
I mean, we've got articles coming out talking about our quarterback not having the hunger in his eyes before games.
Isn't that something? How many tiers of quarterbacks rankings did they come up with? They even had backup quarterback
They just
ones.
invent stuff.
I know they do.
They got it right. They got to have something to fill
football
pages.
24/7, 365 these days. I'm a Matt Stafford fan. I'm in the minority. I know. I love the guy. I love his heart. I think this is his breakout year. And if he doesn't break out this year, okay, I'll wash my hands and say
next year's his breakout year. Then
no, I'll say no. This is the year he breaks out this year. I promise you, breaks out in a big way.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
Hold me to it. Hold me to it.
Okay, playoffs.
Yes,
playoffs.
Yes, I said they're going to the Super Bowl, didn't I?
Oh,
do they get a bye though? Do they get a bye? Do they get that? Do they get that bye?
Do
they beat Green Bay?
They beat Green Bay in Green Bay. It's been since 91.
Do they win the division?
Adam and I have had a lot of talks about.
I hope so.
I do too. That's the only way they're getting to the Super Bowl. Let's be honest.
Now, Adam and I have had a lot of talks about Jim Caldwell, and you're starting to see a shift in the players being a little bit more kind of PG and not so because of what's going on around the league, disciplinary issues. The Lions are kind of not looking toward players that they could potentially draft.
Look at Lyle Collins. They let him go, and the Cowboys picked him up.
What are your thoughts? You think that it's that this is the proper strategy to kind of take it? You need some. I think you
Who
need.
Who am I to know? Who are we to judge?
I think you need some guys that can muck it up and have some grit.
They got guys with grit. They don't have. Maybe they don't have the bad boy, but they got guys with grit.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it's a little bit different. What you're describing is you want that guy who's maybe a little bit borderline, maybe a little bit. I don't like using the word thug, but just a little bit more hardcore. Every locker room needs one or two of those guys who maybe push the envelope a little bit because
it's football.
I think it helps drive the entire team that way a little bit. It's always good to have that one guy.
Well, we're missing Sue. He was our guy.
He was our guy.
He was our bad boy. He made us the mean team. We're missing Dominic Raiola. He was another mean bastard.
Right. Guys who like to kick other guys when they're down.
But you know what? He might have cost his team. He might have cost his team a lot this time.
Yep.
He cost him in Green Bay. Couldn't play that game. They put Travis Swanson, a rookie, in at center. Yeah, he did okay, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same. Yep. And they lost in Green Bay.
And as much as everybody bags on Raiola.
It was a sin. That was not the way to go out.
Yes.
And, to this day, they had the Cowboys beat, as far as I'm concerned, and the refs stole it from them.
Mm-hmm.
The other big talking point, Calvin Johnson, around 30 years old. Do you think that he's going to have a productive season?
Of course.
You believe he'll be productive?
Oh, God, yeah. He'll be more
Wide receivers around the age of 30 kind of start dipping.
Yeah, he'll be top 5 again.
Will he be healthy for 16 games?
I hope so. Last year he missed 6 games, 7
going
games
this way.
Yep.
It was Crazy.
It's going to be tough. They still have Golden Tate, who put out a great season.
It's phenomenal.
And they've got some extra guys that they've added in, and I think Amir Abdullah is going to help that offense immensely.
Were you a fan of that pick? Because I was screaming at my TV.
I know. But you know what? You want these other guys, but Abdullah's going to be a great back. And I'm giving Martin Mayhew the benefit of the doubt here. We need a running back.
Is he going to hold on to the ball, though? That's the question. Can we get him some stickum? If we can put him in there with some stickum, I'm all for it.
Let's go for it. Is it allowed anymore? I don't think it's allowed anymore.
It's not allowed anymore. But
went out with Ken Stabler and Fred Biletnikoff and Lester Hayes back in the Raiders days.
It's like slapped
You
their
know
calves.
what? We all know he puts the ball on the ground. Now we just got to see what he's going to do in the pros. But he's going to help. He's going to be, I hate to use the thunder and lightning, but he and Joik Bell will be that.
And then something I've been thinking is I think Joe Lombardi in the offense, you think they're going to let Stafford be a little bit more. Yeah. Last year, the offense was a little bit conservative towards the end of the year.
I think they tried to retrain him. And, that doesn't really happen with a quarterback that's taken first overall. And a lot of people complain about that. They're like, if he was the number one pick in the draft, you shouldn't have to put restraints on him. But you know what? He was a little haphazard, as we know. He's had a really tremendous year a few years ago when he took him to the playoffs against the Saints, and he really hasn't hit that high point again. I think this year will be his chance to come back out again. I think you'll see that Matt Stafford again. I think he's going to be better. He's in great shape. His mind is good. He's married. He's settled in. I think everything is pointing up to me. I think everything is pointing up.
All right, let me ask you this, because you've watched Lions football a lot longer than I have.
Yep.
And you probably remember the Brett Favre years a lot more clearly than I do.
I do.
So
I was at that Sterling Sharp game.
The most accurate comparison to how Matt Stafford plays is probably Brett Favre. If there was somebody you had to compare,
not really, because he doesn't scramble around like Brett Favre.
Who do you think? Is there somebody that you can pull off the top of your head real quick?
I think he's more like a Matt Ryan, to tell you the truth. And Matt Ryan doesn't have a big history to him, but I think
he's got a better arm, and I think he makes those questionable decisions like Brett Favre. Brett
Favre is the king of questionable decisions.
Brett Favre would just like close his eyes and throw it, and it would.
He cost the Vikings the Super Bowl.
It worked 50% of the time,
and he cost the Packers their last chance at the Super Bowl against the Giants. They're throwing those 2 interceptions. But look at this guy, man, Brett Favre.
Well, that's the thing. I think everybody in Detroit would take Brett Favre.
Oh God, yeah.
But that's Matt Stafford. He
doesn't scramble like Favre.
He doesn't. But I think
you don't like the sidearm throw and all that kind of jazz? The dump-offs?
The decision-making in the delivery of the ball. Because Brett Favre had uncanny deliveries, too. He would sit there, he'd underhand it to you, he'd flip it out to you.
Any way to get the ball
behind
out.
Your back. Yeah.
I guess he's kind of got a little – I think he's got a little gambler in him. You might have that. That's why last year they put the straps around him and said, you're not going to do that.
Do you ever remember Brett Favre having to have that done to him?
No, because he didn't listen. He didn't listen.
That's true. Brett Favre kind of did his own thing.
He did his own thing.
You're absolutely right.
He lived on the edge all the way to the end.
Scratch that question. Throw that out.
I'm retiring. No, I'm not. I'm retiring. No, I'm not. I'm retiring. No, I'm not. He did it his way. Let's face it. And he pissed a lot of people off. I still love the guy. Just got finished watching all that Packers stuff because he just got inducted to their Ring of Honor and their Hall of Fame. And he's back at Green Bay, and he's back in the good graces again. So I'm happy about that. I wanted to see him take the Jets to the Super Bowl. But, it is what it is. Instead, he was sexting pictures to Jen Sturgeon.
Yeah. All right.
She's hot, but
she is.
You should have your nose in a playbook.
Yeah, but this phone is the death of us all.
It's trouble.
It's the death of us.
Okay, you hear that, listeners? Tom Mazawey has Stafford on the buy for the stock
no doubt
for Matt Stafford and the Detroit Lions. 10 wins and the playoffs.
And fantasy sports.
Yep. Put him down.
Put him down.
Matthew Stafford.
Not top 10.
Top 10. Okay.
All right.
Top 10.
All right, let's look at our...
I was going to back into a corner there.
All right.
You sidestepped it.
Yeah, I did.
Good work.
All right.
Farved you.
All right, let's look at our Detroit Tigers. Struggling a little bit, 46-47 as we chat.
Yeah.
It's a tough season, far below everyone's expectations.
Yep.
There's talk about Brad Ausmus. There's talk about now potentially selling off the pieces. This season has really been a struggle because of the expectations and what's happened as we speak here in mid-July. Yet
they're a game out of 500, and they're 4 games out of a wild card spot. So I'm so happy that the Major League Baseball added the extra wild card. And all you got to do is get to that game. Get to that wild card game. They got 4 teams to jump. They're 4 games back. The San Francisco Giants won last year, their playoff game, the wild card game, and they won the World Series. The Royals came back in dramatic fashion, beat the A's last year in a tremendous game in that wild card game, and took it to Game 7 at home in the World Series. Anyone could have won that game.
But Tom, does this team strike you as a team that can do that? Because
Not yet.
I don't see it.
No, because they need to make a deal at the deadline here. They need another arm or two. They need another reliever. You know, Papa Grande is available. People laughed at me today. But you know what? They brought everyone else back in here. Why not bring him in and see if he can get an out or two?
Any more DFA'd relievers out there that we can pick up?
I mean, we've had them all. But look, we should never let Johnson go. He went over to Atlanta. He's closing games for him. For Jason Grilli, another guy we let go. Yeah. So you can go on and on. You never know who's gonna be right for you. You never know. And I mean it. I'm not giving up on the Tigers yet. I am not.
How do you feel about Dave Dombrowski and his job? How his job building this minor league system? I think I think it's been a total abomination.
Well, the minor leagues aren't his suit.
No, they're not a strong suit at all.
Veterans are his suit.
Yes.
That's how he builds his team.
But the thing is, even with his trades, I would say that for every good trade that he's made, there's at least one bad trade that you can kind of point to and look
Doug
at.
Fister was a bad trade.
Doug Fister was bringing Aubrey Huff here at a trade deadline. That didn't work out. So
Washburn, he didn't help.
I just don't think that. I don't know.
Sean Casey helped.
I'm probably hypercritical of Dave Dombrowski just because I look at that minor league system and I just feel like he's done a paltry job.
Yep. We talked to Keith Law, who is an expert on minor leagues from ESPN. And the Tigers are pretty much tapped out down there. They've got a few good prospects, and they just drafted a bunch of new kids that got to come up. But this guy doesn't build with that. Detroit fans have been blessed with 4 straight Central Division titles, 2 pennants, in 10 years. Yeah, they didn't win the World Series. They sucked in 2006. They waited a week to play St. Louis. St. Louis was a bad wild card team that got hot. Detroit booted the ball all over the place. And then that Giants game in 2012 was a horrible showing by them. And Jim Leland basically had enough after that. And here we are with Brad Ausmus. I thought he was the wrong choice last year for a veteran team. Dombrowski liked him. You got to go with Dombrowski. He's going with them now. I think they'll make another move. They have to. I don't think you sell as a Tigers. They don't sell.
If they don't make the playoffs this year, how long does Ausmus have, do you think? I'm
hearing that he's in good.
Really?
Yeah. Shit. I'm hearing that he's in good. But if he keeps hacking up, making mistakes, no one's safe, man.
Right.
You know what? It's what you've done for me lately. Not even your biggest fan can save you if your team's exploding and imploding. But do you think they are? They were down 4-0 last night before I even had a sip of water. 4-0.
I was screaming at my TV. I almost threw my cell phone through.
They come
through
back.
My 50-inch.
That's not a team that quits. That's a team that's getting beat with bad pitching.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Simon and Green are gas cans. Verlander's a giant roller coaster.
Yep.
I mean, he'll have a really good
Verlander
game. Verlander
against Rick Porcello on Friday at Fenway.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, tune in.
How about that?
Well, yeah.
Now, if Rick Porcello beats us, then you can put up the white flag.
Okay.
Yeah, Ricky P's having a rough time.
He is.
Boston.
He's one on my fantasy team, too.
Oh,
that's why I'm not doing too well this year.
Sorry. All right, let's talk about the organization that's on 105.1, the Detroit Pistons. Now, they have played one season under Stan Van Gundy. We got a chance to see what his system is going to be, and I'm impressed. He has a chance to be a great offensive coach, and now he's starting to bring in the pieces that are going to help this team win. And I think that the Pistons are going to have a good season, but we have been waiting now, I think, 6 or 7 seasons without being in the playoffs. Yeah, so it's about that time.
You want to make the playoffs and just get knocked out?
No, I think that's why it's important to get into the dance, and then you never know who gets hot. You never know. Maybe a Brandon Jennings can come back.
Well, Cleveland is pretty much going to own the East for the next few years. Let's face that. Mm-hmm. All right, but they still have a chance. The Pistons still have a chance to be the 8th, the 7th, or the 6th seed from now on.
I'd like to see them right around the 4 or 5.
Yeah, it will be nice.
That'd make me feel much more comfortable about their chances to advance.
They just might. The East is the place where a lot of players want to go play now because it's a lot easier to get into the playoffs in the East than it is out West. You got teams that are over 500 not even making the playoffs in the West. Stanley Johnson was a great addition, I think. This kid, they loved him. There was not even a question that they were going to draft him. So they went out and they got him. They just signed him. He got his new contract. They got their number 2 guy in from Villanova, Darren Hilliard. And Andre Drummond's year is now. He's going to get his new contract, and he's going to play like the guy they think he could play. He's got to get better on the offense. Let's face it.
How do you feel about the way that Stan Van Gundy's constructed this team? It's a very young team.
They got a lot of point guards right now, so we'll see. I'm not sure if he's done with it yet.
The floor is looks like it's gonna be very spread out.
Yes.
So spacing will be nice.
It was blocked. Remember, it was like a big New York City traffic jam.
It was like a giant anvil down there right around the basket. Yep. It was horrible.
So we'll see how they play this year.
Do you like the way that he's constructed this so far?
Yeah, I do. 3-point shots win you the games now. So we'll see how they start shooting. Right now, he's got a lot of point guards. I loved Brandon Jennings when he came back last year. I was one of the guys that wanted to get rid of him before Josh Smith. All right? I thought he was a cancer. And when Josh Smith went, this kid all of a sudden said, wow, this is my team.
Yeah.
And he played some of the best basketball. And they were fun to watch.
They were.
One of the best teams in the NBA. It was exciting. It brought life back to the Palace.
You're not kidding. We had NBA analysts come on and say, I think the Pistons could be a 5 seed at one point when they were really rolling.
Dropping 100 points every game, playing well.
And he blows out the Achilles.
That was
how long does that take to come back? He might not be back for a while yet.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee when he does come back that he'll be as effective because
Reggie
Jackson's
the guy now.
It'll be tighter. It'll be hard for him to move and jump and cut.
Well, Kobe came back, and he wasn't the same, but he was older.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Brandon can come back.
All right, you brought up the name.
Crossed.
Signing. He's going to be the signing.
$80 million man.
He's the signing. SVG is going to be tied to him.
Mm-hmm.
Now he has a chance to be a 20 and 10, point guard. Very, very skilled offensively, but what we've seen a little bit inconsistent. When his shot's off, shooters say you need to keep shooting, but sometimes the shot is off. And I'm curious to see what he's going to do.
I'm with you.
I'm curious to see.
I'm with you. I hope this season's going to be great for him. I mean, September, at the end of September, they start camp into October, and before you know it, the NBA season's back on board, and I'm really interested to see this team. I like his attitude. I like who they brought here. Yeah, they're not a lot of great big names here. It's a tough sell right now. You haven't made the playoffs in 6 straight years or 7 years, whatever the heck it is. But how about back in the day when they made it to how many straight 6 straight NBA East championships? There's a lot of good history here of basketball in Detroit, and it's just fun playing Detroit basketball. I love what Mason says.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I take it to heart. It's like it is the lunch pail team, and they're our team. I didn't like last year when Toronto came in here and took over the Palace.
That was bad.
Although I thought it was amazing what their fans did. It was so much. It really was fun to be there, but I was flabbergasted at the same time.
A little bit embarrassing.
It was. The
one good thing you can say about Reggie Jackson is he stays in contact with all the guys on this team, at least by all accounts. He's been in contact with everybody. It seems like he has embraced the leadership role on this team, and he takes that to heart, and he's very apt. He himself wants to go back to the bad boy Pistons, the lunch pail guys.
He wore that hat.
Yes, and that's something I think that's good for him, just kind of ingratiating himself in with the fans and in with the city. But I think that also helps with the team, and I think that that's going to pull a lot of those guys together.
I still get the chills like when I watched the 30 for 30 Bad Boys.
Yes,
that was great.
And I was in Jersey at the time when they played, but you know what? I rooted for them. And as bad as it sounds, like when they walked off the court against the Bulls, I was back in Jersey saying, "Man, that was cool."
Were you like, yes?
Yeah, that was cool. Because I wasn't a big Jordan guy either. Just like I'm not a LeBron guy, and maybe I'm an underdog kind of guy. They're an underdog team. They're an underdog story. We always get all mad, like when the NBA shows highlights, everything, and all of a sudden they skip 89, 88, 89, 90, 91. They skip 04. Just because, we're the Pistons. I really take them to heart. They're a real fun team to watch, and I think they're going to be around for a while. Stan Van Gundy is not going anywhere, and I love that he's the president and he's the guy that you go talk to. He's the coach. You don't like it? Go talk to the president. Oh, that's me.
The buck stops here.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be. We have a couple minutes left with Tom Mazawey. Now, of all the championships in Detroit, so many sports, so many great teams, and we've been blessed to have championship teams.
You're not kidding.
Which championship did you most get invested in and that you most enjoyed watching? Which team?
97 Red Wings.
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
That was the day I graduated high school.
Oh, it was so good.
What a memory.
And again, I worked at JR. We had the team, and our broadcast facility was a bathroom, of course, in the Joe Louis Arena, but right across from the Red Wing locker room. We used to call it the John at the Joe. Art Regner called it Studio P. So never mind that, but to get these guys coming off the ice and celebrating with them, and Mike Vernon with the victory cigar, and just phenomenal to see them win. And Scotty Bowman, I watched him as a kid, and I'm there rubbing elbows with Scotty Bowman. I mean, come on, man. It doesn't get better than that. Scotty Bowman is Vince Lombardi. I think they're in the same breath.
Amazing.
And to see that team win, and to see this city with that parade and everything they did, and then they come back and they repeat. And poor Vladdy and Sergei Sakhanov, and what happened to them the following year to win it in Washington, and we got to cover that team as well. And that what a thrill, what a moment. I have that little photo behind you. I got that. I get the chills right now talking about it. And that was phenomenal. And maybe hockey's not number one to everyone in the country, but man, it is a great game. and if you don't like it, you really don't know what you're missing. These Canadian farm boys put their hearts out, and they're all great guys too.
Exactly.
Most of them top-notch guys, and the most available of any any athlete in all sports are hockey players. 97 Red Wings, without a doubt, my favorite.
Now, we'll get you out of here on this. We ask all our guests. It's an interesting question that I read in a book out there from an author in New York. He says, if you got 4 tickets, any sporting event, any time in history, you can take 3 people, either dead or alive, famous or your friends. Ooh. What venue would you go to, and what event would you watch, and who would you take?
I'm going to the Super Bowl. And I would hope it was at the Rose Bowl, because the Rose Bowl is an amazing venue. And when I was there at 98, when Michigan won the national championship with Brian Griese and Lloyd Carr, again, JR story. We covered the team.
I'm just saying, you need to write a book.
You're not kidding, man.
The
people that I've rubbed elbows with, I can't even believe.
Jeez.
Like, I had a show with Bo Schembechler. I mean, I produced this show for 7 years. Brandy and Bo and Ernie Harwell. The Super Bowl to me should
be sports according to Maz.
I swear, man. I'm so lucky.
We got the title already.
I'm so lucky. I am. But the Super Bowl at the Rose Bowl.
Who would you take?
I would take my wife, and I would take my best friend, Ralph. And the 4th ticket, man, that would be a tough one. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it for you guys. You guys can split it up.
Tom Mazawey, 105.1 FM. Check him out on Twitter at Tom Mazawey, DetroitSports1051.com. Radio executive producer. Thank you so much for sharing stories. We really enjoyed it. We wish we could talk for another 2 to 3 hours. Great stories.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for your time.
It makes me feel good, remembering why I'm in this business. It's fun, and I hope you guys do. I hope you guys kick butt, man. Keep it up.
Thank you, Tom.
We appreciate your time.